All right, guys, we're back. I'm George Mossey. This is my co-host Heather C. So I Love a Mama's Boy, Season 3, Episode 7. This is part 2. We have a little bit more to talk about, right? So we know that Kelly took a unannounced trip to Brittany's work because she, in her words, wanted to prove that she actually worked there. I think that's what she said. And she also wanted to kind of grill her on a little more information about her intentions with her son. And we watched the scene with Matt and Kelly for movie night, and Matt did take this time to ask his mom why she decided to do this because, in his eyes, this is too much and it's going to scare her away. And he's trying to build a relationship with her, and he can't understand why his mom won't let that happen. And he also said, what is it that my mom sees in her that's so bad? And I don't want Matt to think that way because if we think about Kelly, she'll find anything wrong with any woman that Matt is trying to date. So don't think that you're making a bad decision because your mom doesn't like her, because I'm a mama's boy. I was a mama's boy, and my mom hated every girl that I ever dated, and a lot of them were nice. Some of them weren't, but a lot of them were nice, and she hated them all. So don't second guess yourself if your mom doesn't like her, because no one will ever be good enough for you.
Yeah, I think that's basically sums it all up. I mean, mothers never think that anybody is good enough for any of their children, not just their sons, but their daughters, etc. Like, I think that, they think that they created the most perfect human being, and, you're never going to find anybody superior to match your child. And you don't want your child to ever get hurt. You don't ever want them to have heartbreak, loss, anything like that. So I think you just build up this make-believe world for them, and you want to put your kids in a bubble, and you're like, no, because I mean, everything happened to you. You've had your heart broken, you've had loss, you've been rich, you've been broke, you've been whatever. So it's like you lived your life experiences. So it's like, since you learned what to do, it's like you're like, well, why should I let them live their life? I could just give them the answers they need. So they might end up being a truly great human being and a perfect match for your child, but sometimes it's just hard to see past that exterior. Yep. So but yeah, I think that, as crazy as it seems, I think Kelly means well. I think that she comes on very strong, and in her mind, she doesn't think she's doing anything wrong. She's just trying to protect Matt. But by being so defensive and, trying to protect him as closely as she is, it's probably going to set him up for heartbreak, because any girl that he'd have potential to fall in love with is going to end up being scared and wanting to go left field, because they're going to be afraid that they're going to get judged, like they're going to have unexpected guests. Because I mean, even people that have a good relationship with their mother-in-laws and stuff, they don't want them around all the time. They're the mom, it's like, you want to be able to go over to your mother-in-law's house, have dinner, maybe some tea, and then go home. You don't want to just have all these pop-up surprise visits like at your job, and you feel like people are trying to catch you doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody wants that feeling. I think that she should have just kind of let the relationship see where it goes. It was so new. They were still trying to get to know each other before she came in so strong and wanted to scare him away. But we know from watching them on several seasons now, she's just being herself.
Well, yeah, Kelly always tells Matt's girlfriends, like, I don't trust you, you need to build your trust. But in actuality, I don't think there's anything that these girls could ever do that will build trust with Kelly. Kelly is always going to side eye any woman that Matt is with. And unfortunately, it's going to be difficult for Matt to settle down, get married, and have kids, because he's going to want a healthy relationship between everyone involved. And I don't really think that's going to happen. All right, so last but not least, let's talk about a heated celebration dinner that happened at Nancy's house between Christy and Nancy. And this got really crazy because we know that Christy has been holding in, confronting her mother-in-law, Nancy, about requesting and going through with a paternity test for their daughter, Kimberly. And it all hit the fan at this dinner tonight, and things got literally crazy, to the point where Nancy asked if she could whoop Christy's ass. Like, it got pretty insane and intense. And Robert actually stood up to his mother, left the situation, and said, look, this can't happen. I'm choosing my family. I'm choosing my kids. And I actually am happy that he stood up to his mom. And unfortunately, it looks like things are going to be rocky because he said at this point, I'm only going to see you on holidays if this is the way you're going to treat my family. And it's unfortunate because Nancy doesn't see what's wrong. And she also feels because her other son, Jacob, and her sister, Peggy, they both believe that everything that they're doing towards Christy is right.
You know, I feel like this is a classic case of too little, too late. I mean, yeah, he stood up for Christy, but he should have did that from the start. You know, like the whole time he sat back and kind of like let his mom try to control his life, his relationship. It was crossing the line when she asked for paternity tests, because even Christy was like, I don't trust you around my kids. That's sad. Overall, she's the grandmother. And the fact that these children are probably like, why can't I ever see grandma? You know, like dad's always hanging out with her. Why can't I, see her? And it's just, it's so sad. But you know what? I don't fault her for her decision, because you know that if the kids were there, she might talk bad about her. Nobody should talk bad about the mom, you know what I mean, behind their back. And it's like, she probably feels like that would happen. And it's like, yeah, I'm glad that he finally stood up for her. But it's like at the end where she's crying in the bathroom, that just shows it's too little, too late. Why did it have to get to that? She put up with all this abuse, this verbal abuse, and that's what it is, for so long. To say to somebody, you need to get a paternity test because I don't feel like that's my grandchild, that's hurtful. It just felt like it was supposed to be a celebration for his winning his fight, and it was the complete opposite. And they want to blame Christy, but all three of them had this like really like stank look on their face from the second she walked in. They could have at least been cordial. They could have at least said, hi, thanks for coming. It takes two to tango. It takes two to be a problem. Like, they both need to just meet each other halfway. They're all adults in the situation. None of them are kids.
Nancy feels that it's not her place to apologize. I wanted to bring that up because this all could be resolved and they could move forward if Nancy would apologize and change the way she treats Christy. But it seems like that's not an option. She said, I apologize to my son, but I will never apologize to Christy. But in actuality, Christy is the one that she's hurt. So how do you feel about her not wanting to move forward? Like, where do you think this is going to go? Because she honestly feels like getting Christy away from her son is the goal. So is it safe to keep Nancy away from them, like Christy said?
Mothers, and this goes for the same thing with Matt and Kelly's situation, mothers are never going to think that anybody is good enough for their children. And instead of looking at maybe the bigger picture as to why did he find her in the first place, what made him fall in love with her, even though you don't like her or her character, there has to be some other side. A lot of mothers don't like the people that are in their kids' lives, whether it's their significant others or maybe even friends that they hang out with. They might think that they're bad for them. Sometimes the parents are spot on and sometimes they're completely wrong. And I just think that she needs to try to look and see, okay, why do I not like her? Why do I not trust her? Is it because I don't think anybody's good enough for my son? Did she do something to me directly? How can we fix this? And I think as long as she is so strong-headed and so stubborn, there's not going to be a way to fix this relationship.
See, that's how I see it. I see Robert having to cut ties with his mother, which I think is going to be very unfortunate because he has two daughters who needs to see their grandmother, who needs to see their aunts and their uncles. And I don't see how they can move forward because the damage is so great between Nancy and Christy. I don't really see them patching things up. And especially the fact that Nancy's unwilling to make anything right. She's unwilling to accept any fault, responsibility, or even apologize. And Christy is hurt to the point where even being in the presence of her is disrespect. Like, to the point where I don't feel like she respects me. I don't want my kids around her because she doesn't respect my kids. And it's just a very unfortunate incident. And like I said, it all could be fixed if people were willing to apologize and move forward and wipe the slate clean. Because you can't fix what you've already done, but you can change the way that you treat people and act and react to things. And unfortunately, Nancy just doesn't feel the way. And like you said, what did Christy do that was so wrong? Because in the beginning of the season, she said, oh, I believe she tried to trap my son. And I believe that he wasn't ready to be a father. And again, it takes two people to do that. So she was not solely responsible for that situation. So again, she needs to make a list of reasons why she thinks she doesn't like Christy and make sure that none of those are personal just because it's her son. All right, guys, that's it for part 2. I'm George Mossey. This is my co-host, Heather C. So next week, we'll be catching up with Ethan, Esther, and Lena, probably for their wedding. I didn't see the preview for next week's episode yet, so we'll see. And make sure you're live tweeting with us every Sunday night for I Love a Mama's Boy, right after 90 Day Fiancé. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you all really soon.